Nioh 2 is probably my game of the year from 2020, and with the new release on PC, luckily on Steam, I thought I would give a short guide for new players sharing the experience I've gained from my several playthroughs over the last year. Though it is one of my favorite games, it certainly isn't easy going on new players, especially if you do not know what you're doing and if you did not play the first game. This guide is aimed at absolute beginners, where I will try to cover the basics of weapon selection, along with some of the most vital game mechanics, and finally a guide for the first 3 main missions, not just the bosses but also tips to make your route through the Yokai infested feudal Japan a little easier. I will leave timestamps in case only some of this is of interest to you. I will make a separate video later where I cover some of the basic build options you can do without excessive grinding, but this does require you to complete the first region of the game since it opens up a lot more skill and gear options. Note that once you beat these 3 missions, the game becomes a lot more manageable, so just keep at it if you're struggling. After starting the game and creating your preferred waifu, you'll be met with a selection of weapons and guardian spirits. First of all, let's cover the weapons. All of your options here are viable, but I do find some more skill-based to use compared to others in terms of maximizing your damage output. The most easily accessible weapons I believe are the katana, the dual swords, the spear, the dual axes and the switchblade. These weapons have the easiest movesets for beginners to grasp. Weapons like the axe is not too difficult to use, but some skills are tailored to work optimally when you are low on stamina, which is a little counterintuitive to a normal playstyle. The kusarigama is also okay for beginners, but its moveset takes a little while getting used to due to you swinging a large chain around. Also, if you want to go into ninjutsu and fling kunais and bombs at your foes, this is the top pick. The rest of the weapons, while completely usable for a beginner, do have some quirks you will need to get used to. For example, the tonfas, while I think they are a lot of fun, they do require you to have mastered the art of key pulsing, which I will cover in a moment, in order to enter what is called Demon Dance, where you'll be able to deliver long and powerful combos. The split staff, for example, another good pick for a magic build, has a slightly weird moveset. While you can bonk enemies to your heart's content by pressing the attack buttons, you can also hold these buttons down at the end of your combo to extend the staff through a chain, allowing either a longer range, higher damage or multiple hits, making it play quite a bit differently from the other weapons. Lastly is the most recent addition to the newest DLC, the fist weapon. These are probably my personal favorites. They are fast, fun and just a joy to play with. They do however require you to chain your skills together in order to get the most from them, making them more suited to a player with a little experience. With all that being said, all the weapons are viable for a beginner. And if you think one looks more fun, that is the one you should pick. You'll get ample of opportunities to respec during your playthrough, so by all means experiment and find the weapons you find the most fun to stab, bash and mutilate with. When you have selected your weapons, you'll get to select your guardian spirit. While they each offer different stats and bonuses, one of their major functions is to allow you to perform a move dubbed burst counter, which is essentially a parry for specific attacks. You are greeted with 3 options here: Doggo, Birdo and Fish. These will provide you with 3 different types of parry: Brute, which is the dog, Feral, which is the bird, and finally Phantom, which is the fish. These types of parry relate to when you want to intercept an enemy's attack. Much like in games like Dark Souls, certain attacks can be parried by performing a given countermeasure, in Nioh's case pressing the right trigger and the circle or B button, where if performed correctly, you will gain a large opening for wailing on your poor target. In Nioh 2, this is more important than ever, since the opening for this burst counter, shown when the enemy is glowing red, should always be counted, since the following attack from the enemy is usually devastating and hard to avoid by normal dodging. So how do the different guardian spirits change this parry? Simply by having to be performed in different windows during the enemy's attack. First is the Brute, the dog. This is used as soon as you see the red glow, optimally bonking the foe on the noggin before the attack has even started. If you're a little slow on the trigger, the attack may connect and damage you, but the parry will still be successful. This is great if you have a fast reaction time. Secondly, we have the Feral parry, which is the bird. Using the burst counter will perform a fast dodge in the direction you're pushing the analog stick. The idea is to dodge directly into the enemy while he's attacking, making you rely more on timing and positioning than pure reaction time. This move can also double as an emergency dodge if you happen to run out of stamina, or ki in this game, allowing you to save your skin instead of getting mushed into a fine paste. Lastly is the Phantom parry, which is the fish. Using the burst counter with this spirit will pop a brief magical shield which protects you from all damage. If you pop the shield just before the attack hits you, the counter is a success. This parry relies solely on timing and is what I would believe closest to the classic type of Dark Souls parry. It should be mentioned that Feral and Phantom spirits can be used for some advanced techniques called animation cancels. This is however a beginner's guide, so this is not something I will cover. If you felt you picked the wrong guardian spirit in the beginning, don't fret. Early on you will unlock other spirits, also the ones you could pick from different categories, and you can switch whenever you please. Before I start the walkthrough, I would like to provide you with a few general tips and tricks. An important note on combat before we get going is combat stances. In Nioh you can switch between low, high and mid stance by pressing R1, the right bumper, along with an input button. These stances give you access to different moveset and skills. Low stance, for example, allows you to move and regenerate ki faster at the expense of your damage output, where high stance is the opposite, making you dodge slower but you will hit much harder. Mid stance is sort of an in-between between the two stances, with an extra upside of being better for blocking. Again, learn to switch between these to suit your needs, but in the beginning use the stance you are most comfortable with. Regarding blocking, it should be noted that it is extremely useful in Nioh, whereas in many Souls games you will lose a large window of attack by blocking instead of dodging. This is not the case here. Experiment with blocking and see where it suits you best, but note that there is a larger key usage when blocking compared to dodging. When it comes to spending your experience at the shrine, you have many stats to choose from, but you should focus on the one that scales with your weapon. You can see these on the inventory screen. Note that you can always press the option button on the controller to get an explanation of what everything does. Generally, look at your weapon and go for the stats with the best scaling. A is best, D is worst. In the beginning you can also easily put points into lesser scaling stats without sacrificing much damage for a more balanced build. Also a few points in magic and dexterity never hurt for the use of omnio magic and ninjutsu skills as a utility. A quick note on gearing. You do not unlock a lot of options to make actual builds in the beginning, so regarding weapons just use the one with the highest attack, and regarding armor you can go for bonuses you think sound the best, but make sure that your equip load stays below 70%, the text should be green. There are 3 brackets of equip load. Above 70% you are heavy and your ki regenerates really slowly. This is generally ill-advised unless you're making a very tanky build later in the game. Between 30 and 70% is the sweet spot for new players, where you want to be as close to 70% as possible. There's no difference between being at 30.01% and being at 69.99%. You can also go below 30% and you'll be very quick and agile and regenerate ki much faster. You are however extremely squishy and I wouldn't recommend this until you're very comfortable with combat and can avoid getting hit. After mission 2 and 3 you will unlock dojo missions from the map menu. Make sure you do these as soon as possible as they unlock new skills for your skill tree. Before opening last chest, check the golden bands on the side. If they're 2 you're good to go, but if they're 3 this is a mimic or a Mujina. Opening these will make this raccoon thing jump out at you and perform a gesture. If you do nothing it will attack, but if you copy the gesture from the menu access by pressing start, it will simply drop a bunch of loot and leave you alone. If you notice that a chest has a mimic, you can use the whistle emote and he will pop out. It doesn't make much of a difference though. When exploring, you will come across walls with eyes. These are wall guardians called Nioh-Kabis which block your path. You need to perform a certain emote in front of him to make him go away. Note that these emotes have colors corresponding to friendly, neutral and aggressive behavior, blue, yellow and red respectively. One of these types is the correct one. If you try one, the Nioh-Kabi will either leave or he will get annoyed. If he gets annoyed, try another category of emote. If he's still not correct, he will attack. You can try to find a player grave close by. This will say something like was killed by his friendly behavior, showing what category emote not to pick. If you're still struggling, remember that there's no shame in asking for help. Either summon a blue phantom to aid you as an AI, or use the shrine to summon in another player. We are always glad to help. But make sure you try on your own before resorting to this, since there's nothing more satisfying than conquering these challenges alone. With all this said, it's time to head into the first mission. From the get-go here, it's clear that Nioh doesn't mess around. After fighting a single mindless drone enemy called the Gaki, you enter an arena with a boss called Gozuki, which, in my opinion, is harder than the actual boss of the level, which is his brother Mezuki, who we'll get to soon. Furthermore, you probably hardly know the controls and have nothing but your starting gear and stats. The game doesn't really expect you to fight him though, you can just run past him. The reward for beating him is some gear, an achievement and a key which allows you to skip a significant part of the level. He is however a good practice dummy since he is very close to the bonfire, shrine, whatever, because his moveset is fairly simple and allows for good practice of the game's ground maneuvers, so we'll use him for just that. Most of his attacks are overhead swings, which will be dodged to the side just before they cross you. Instead of trying to attack between these, simply wait for his first swing and then use the burst counter as described before, which is indicated by his red glow. This is a great way to practice. Whenever you do this successfully, you will drain a large portion of his ki, the small bar below his health, and when this is completely empty, you get your chance to strike. When this bar is empty, every hit you do will stagger him, leaving you to wail on his sorry butt until he roars, regains his ki and wets himself, leaving a pool of black goo on the floor called Yokai corruption. Do not stand in these pools. While standing in them, your ki will not regenerate and you will most likely run out and get masked into the paste-like substance I described earlier. This however leads us nicely into the second most important skill of Nioh combat. After unleashing a series of attacks, you will notice the white sparks gathering around your character and you will see the ki bar at the top left refilling with a white bar. If you press the right bumper just as the particle gather the most and the white bar is full, you will perform a ki pulse which will restore your ki and allow you to continue attacking. Furthermore, if it is done near or in a pool of Yokai corruption as the one Gozuki just pissed out, you will cleanse it and remove it. This is an important skill to master and should preferably be done after each of your combos. Having gotten this down, he has a few more tricks up his sleeve. Mainly, when he stamps the ground, he will start to charge you, which can be very tricky to dodge. When he does this, move sideways and dodge to the side just before impact. Note that if it runs into an obstacle shortly after starting his charge, he will instantly turn around and charge again, so be ready for that. Again, it is not necessary to beat him, but I recommend giving it a few tries before skipping along, since beating him will teach you much about the game and allow you to breeze through the missions a lot easier. After beating him, or tucking your tail between your legs, we will start the actual mission. If you manage to beat him, first of all good job, but I do not recommend using the ki to skip part of the level, since there's gear and collectibles to be found on the normal path. Make sure you search every nook and cranny, not only for gear, but also for little green buggers, who will allow you to equip a passive bonus at the shrine. Also, as you will see right after the Gozuki fight, you can find many shortcuts back to shrines which will help you when you die, and believe me, it will happen a lot. Pushing forwards, we come to a cloud of black smoke. This is the second large challenge for new players, a big monkey yokai known as Enki. You will come to know him throughout the game, but let's focus on this fight for now. First, as always, watch for the red glow and use the burst counter. Secondly, one of his attacks will glow with a dark aura. This is an incoming grab attack which you have to avoid. When you see it, dodge back until you're comfortable enough to dodge through it and then punish it. Besides the burst counter, he has two glaring openings. First, when he does 2 consecutive swings, he will usually follow up with a stab. This is actually really easy to dodge. Sprinting to the side by holding X or A will cause it to whiff past you and put it in your lovely position to tickle his side. Secondly, when he jumps into the air, back up. When he does this, he will do one of 2 things. If you're close, he will slam straight down, but if you have backed away, he will throw his spear, which again can be dodged by sprinting to the side. When he lands after throwing, he rolls slowly forward, allowing you for more tickling. Note that many attacks can be dodged by sprinting, which is a great way to control your position in the heat of battle. Note that once you beat him, he will not respawn, which goes for every enemy appearing out of the black smoke. Continue pushing forward, get the bow and realize how overpowered it is. If a human enemy is not wearing a helmet, a single shot to the face will usually kill him. Use this to pick off archers on rooftops and thin groups of human enemies to more manageable sizes. Towards the end of the level, we enter the first Dark Realm. In here, your ki will regenerate very slowly, so be careful about playing too aggressively. In here you will need to find the enemy with red spider leaders around him, in this case the 2-bit monkey, and eliminate him. This will cause the Dark Realm to disperse, and all the creatures inside it will not respawn when resting at a shrine. He will drop a key which is used to open the gate right next to the shrine inside the Dark Realm, which leads to our first main boss, Mezuki. This fight is actually pretty straightforward. He will do large sideways swings, where you should back up or dodge through. Next up he will shoot blobs of black goo from his chest, which will home in on you. When this happens, just run around to his backside and they will miss you and give you a good opportunity to attack. He will also suddenly glow red and charge at you, slamming the ground in front of him. Burst counter this and get your window of opportunity. At some point in the fight he will transform and shift into the Dark Realm, like the one you cleansed right before the fight. Here he will get extended combos and shoot larger number of blobs at you. Again, remember that the ki regeneration is slowed here, so be careful. Note that when he shifts into the Dark Realm, the animation is quite long and can give you some time to smack his booty. You may have noticed the Enenra gauge at the top left of your screen. If it is full, you can shift into Yokai form by pressing circle and triangle or B and Y together. Though this becomes generally useless in the later game, actually from mission 4 and onward, it can give you quite the edge in this fight if you're running low on health and healing, especially in the Dark Realm since you're not affected by ki usage while in Yokai shifts. Kill the ugly goat and we can move on to the second mission. Starting out on the second level, there isn't much to say for the beginning of the level, just move slowly and explore, and remember to unlock the shortcut back to the shrine before you go to your first black fog. Here you will encounter an Ippon Tatara who will attempt to crush you with his hammer. He will mostly stick to overhead slams and side swings, dodge to the side for the overhead slams, and take note that sometimes he will slam once and other times thrice. For the sideways swings you can dodge through them, but I recommend simply blocking. He will also jump at you, which uses the sidestep. Moving forward, you will meet the blacksmith, who you will get to know intimately over the course of the game, but she doesn't know anything for now. Push through, pray at the shrine, and you come to another Dark Realm. Take it slow, kill the monkey, and remember to loot the chests, after clearing the Dark Realm of course, for some ninja locks. Use these and you will get your first ninjutsu skill point. I recommend getting some bombs, since using these regularly will help you level up your ninjutsu and get more skill points. And they can make a joke of a really annoying enemy in the next level. Remember to equip your ninjutsu at the shrine by using the ready jutsu option. Continue on the path and kick down the ladder before getting into a large flaming building. In this building, again, move slowly and explore. Right when you enter, you can take a quick shortcut to the shrine by walking through some flames like this. Fight your way to the top of the building, where you will find a chest with some Nioh mage locks, which, like with the ninja locks, can be used to gain an Nioh magic skill point. Here I would recommend the lightning talisman, which can be used to give you a lightning weapon buff. While exploring this building, make sure to kick down buckets of water and pick up the forge key just above the ladder from the shrine on a corpse on a ledge. When you're ready, head to the center of the room to face off against the second main boss, Enenra. Enenra is a tanky bastard. He has much more health compared to the previous boss, and is generally a bit harder. His moveset is however quite limited, so a careful and methodical approach will make the fight much easier. He will teleport around the stage, and when he appears, you should move away from him. Note his attacks. If he starts with a kick, he will follow up with another kick, and if he starts with a punch, he will either follow up with 2 more punches or a kick, followed by another punch and a kick. His kicks can be avoided by simply moving backwards. Wait for him to finish his combo and deal some damage. When he spawns bombs around him, just back up and wait for them to explode. His burst move is a little tricky though. He will charge at you as a tornado, and you need to get the timing just right to not take massive damage. Trial and error is the key here. You can lure him into pillars, dumping water on him and causing damage. This creates an opening, but not as big as you might think, so do not get greedy here. He will also throw out small tornadoes, which can be easily avoided by sprinting around them. When he is out of key, naturally you should go on the offense, but be careful. When he regenerates, he will swirl into a damaging tornado where you will want to keep your distance. When he shifts into the Dark Realm, he will become faster, but his moveset will not change, so neither should your strategy. Take it slowly and you will persevere. Moving on to the third level. In the beginning there isn't much new here. Keep pushing forward until you get to a cave area. Here you will encounter a snake enemy, a Nure-Ona, which can be really annoying. If you pick the lightning talismans, these are very useful here. When fighting these snakes, blocking is your friend. She will do many 360-degree attacks, which can be blocked at very little key expense. She will also spit poison, which can be avoided by casually moving to the side. When she charges her burst move, she will either slam her tail directly in front of her or shoot out a parallaxing beam. Both can of course be met with a burst counter or avoided by moving to the side. When you're finished with her, note that the room contains a secret wall, which leads to some Nioh mage locks. Keep pushing forward until you arrive at an overlook of a cave. First thing to do is to run up the slope and unlock the shortcut to the shrine. Then go back to where you first came to the top of the overlook. Though we can head straight for the boss at the far end of the cave, this is a really bad idea since there will be poison pools which will make a hard fight even harder. The large cave hides 3 snake statues which will be destroyed and will remove this poison. If you drop down as shown here, you will end up directly at the first statue without even getting into the poison lake scattered around the cave. The next statue is in a small cave directly to the right of the first statue. The last one is in the Dark Realm in the far corner of the large cave. This area also hosts a shrine, which will make your trip to the boss much easier. To the left of this cave is some black fog housing an Ippon Tatari, and behind him you'll not only find a shortcut back, but also a secret wall allowing you a much better vantage point of the Dark Realm, letting you destroy the statue without even entering combat. Note that this unlocks a shrine very close to the boss. In general, if you feel a run to a boss is long, you most likely missed a shortcut somewhere, since generally the strolls back to the boss is fairly short in Nioh 2 if you explore the level first. While in this cave, you will have encountered these blob enemies which can be really annoying to fight since they are only really damageable by elemental attacks or when their glowing sensor is exposed. Remember the ninjutsu bombs I recommended? Throw a single one of them and they will instantly die. Same works with an elemental shot which you will unlock after this mission. This can also be a great way to grind out some Nioh and ninjutsu experience if you need some extra skill points. Destroy all the 3 statues around the cave and head for the boss area. Now it's time to face off against probably the hardest challenge for new players, Yatsu-No-Kami. This is probably the boss that makes most new players quit the game, but if you have destroyed the statues, you're already in a much better position than I was during my first playthrough. This fight can be infuriating, especially if you're waiting around in poison pools. This overgrown sausage has a lot of moves and they all hit hard. Note his snake's arms. You should kill these before he enters the Dark Realm, since otherwise there will become extra enemies adding chaos to an already tricky fight. When both snakes are still on him, he will do an attack where he shoves them into the ground and they will pop up where you stand. This is the easiest attack to avoid by simply moving towards him and should be your main opening. Note he will only do this attack while both snakes are alive, so you can take advantage of this and switch between hitting his left and right sides alternately to bait this attack for as long as possible. Of his other attacks, most notable is the 360-degree tail swipe. If you can dodge through it, you will get a great opening, or you can also simply block it, but it will take up a lot of your ki. When you see black smoke around his mouth, back up. This is a very large grab attack, it has a large hitbox and will almost always one-shot you if you're not full on health. He will also shoot small needles in various formations. The easiest thing to do here is just to block, since they require very little ki to do so. One of his burst attacks is a little weird. He will start charging at you, slithering on the ground, and the burst counter is very tricky to get right. Instead I recommend just sidestepping and smacking his side while he moves past you, which is a great opening where he cannot fight back. I think I covered most of his important moves, but compared to the previous bosses there's a lot of them. Keep at it and he will go down eventually, and reward you with a soul core, granting you one of the best yokai abilities in the game, and a ground pillar if you want to make a poison build. Equip this at the shrine as soon as you can. Well, that's it for this beginner's guide, I hope it helped. There's probably a ton of things I forgot, but there's a lot of stuff to cover and I've already been droning on for way too long. I apologize for the poor video quality, but it's my first time recording and editing. If you have questions, feel free to use the comments and I will try to do my best to answer them. By the way, if you're interested in the lore of the yokais, I really recommend looking up the raccoon Mujina creature for a really good laugh. I hope you have a great time in Nioh and good luck with all the coming fights.